In a big contest for making the best sweets in the world, a famous sweet maker accidentally gets squished by his own candy statue. Feeling sad that he never became the best, a goddess gives him a second chance. He's reborn in a different world as Pastry Mill Mortelme, the son of Lord Casserole and Agnes. Pastry loves sweets, but their farms only grow wheat and barley, and sugar is too expensive. Pastry wants to make desserts popular, but bandits threaten their farms. So Lord Casserole decides Pastry should go through a special ceremony to unlock magical powers. Traveling to the capital, Pastry sees new fruits and foods for the first time and is determined to make his dream come true. During the ceremony, Pastry has to endure 48 hours without any senses. He manages by thinking about all the desserts he wants to create and discovers a powerful magic called replication. Lord Casserole donates to the church, but a greedy priest who doesn't like him decides to sell info about Pastry's powers to the highest bidder. With the bandits getting close in just a few days, Casserole tells everyone to gather crops, block water, and come to the village. This is to bring the bandits straight to them, so the damage is less when they fight. The bandits show up, wanting to steal the crops. Pastry, worried he won't fulfill his dream of making desserts, starts planning to defend the village. Casserole finds out the bandits used to be army cavalry who left and now have prisoners as shields. They trick the cavalry into coming close, and Pastry and the kids from the village cause chaos with slingshots and flaming arrows. As the bandits get inside, they hurt some villagers and Pastry is captured by the leader. But Pastry has a trick. His replication ability can copy anything he sees. So he copies the burned face of one bandit onto all of them, causing a lot of pain and ending the battle in a snap. The bandits are kept in the barn. Because of politics, they need to be given to Countess Brioche and Reed's territory, where they are from. This way, she can say she caught them and keep her good name. Pastry's friends Mark and Lumi get swords from the bandits and become Pastry's future helpers. Mark and Lumi are curious about the bandits, so they sneak into the barn. The bandit leader tricks Mark, steals his sword, stabs Lumi, and escapes, with Mark as a hostage. Pastry goes after them and saves Mark, but the bandit gets away. Pastry has to tell Casserole they only survived because he secretly copied Casserole's teleportation magic. Casserole makes Pastry promise not to tell anyone, as powerful people might want to use him as a weapon if they find out he can copy a magic. Mark says sorry to Lumi for getting her hurt, and Pastry makes a Bonka apple pie to celebrate. Lumi's dad, Glackage, suggests Mark should make up for his mistake by marrying Lumi. Lumi agrees casually, leaving Mark embarrassed about being engaged to her. Casserole doesn't have enough money to fix his lands after the bandit attack. Pastry has a great idea because his sister Josephine is almost ready to get married. Nobles usually travel a lot to find spouses for their kids. Since travel costs a lot, Pastry suggests making pictures of the kids' faces to send to each other. These matchmaking pictures are cheaper than traveling for weeks and will definitely make money. Casserole and Pastry visit Countess Brioche, a smart politician. She tries to impress them with tea and sweet biscuits, but Pastry doesn't like them. Pastry surprises everyone by bringing up Brioche's failure to get rid of the bandits, catching her in lies. He makes her admit it and pay for the damage to Casserole's lands. Brioche asks what was wrong with her biscuits, and Pastry says they were too sugary for the tea. Brioche decides to keep an eye on Pastry and is amazed when he gives her a replicated picture of herself. At a fancy party thrown by Lord Cadlesec, the head of the kingdom's army, Pastry and Casserole meet his grandson Squall. Pastry shows off his magic for making pictures and tricks Squall into liking a picture of Lady Petra Huberek, who is looking for a husband. Cadlesec gets mad because the Hubereks and their neighbors don't get along. But when Pastry tells him that Margrave Huberek is using Petra's engagement for sneaky reasons, Cadlesec changes his mind. He goes to visit Margrave Huberek so Squall can meet Petra, bringing the feud to the king's attention. A few days later, Squall is secretly engaged to Petra. Since Huberek's enemies will be mad if they find out, Cadlesec hires Casserole to safely take Petra to the capital for her big ceremony. The only problem is keeping the church from leaking news about the secret engagement. Pastry has a smart idea to hide Petra in the church's sanctification chamber, so she's safe from assassins and the church can't pry. During the journey, assassins attack the carriage. Pastry defends Petra and her sister Licorice, making Licorice develop a crush on him. Casserole teleports them to the cathedral in the city. Meanwhile, Lord Armar, who doesn't like Margrave Huberek, hires fighters to grab Petra. This would embarrass Lord Cadlesec, and by pretending to save her, Lord Armar could become a noble again by marrying Petra. Petra starts her sanctification, so Casserole sends Pastry to help Licorice relax before her ceremony. After Petra finishes sanctification, she goes to her and Squall's engagement party. Licorice can't relax with her maid, Kara, watching to make sure she's not alone with a guy, even if it's someone as young as Pastry. The fighters attack the cathedral and take Pastry and Licorice. Pastry keeps Licorice calm and tricks their guard into saying they work for a noble who hates the Cadlesecs and Hubereks. Lord Armire, the duke who lost his noble status. Pastry quickly sends a message to Casserole, who gathers men to attack the Armire mansion. The chief of the fighters realizes they kidnapped the wrong sister and won't get paid, so he decides to kill Licorice. Pastry frees himself and confidently challenges the chief to a fight. Casserole and his guys attack the mansion, so the chief runs away. Armire gets arrested and Casserole and Pastry go after the chief. Pastry easily beats him because he messed up the chief's sword with magic when they were tied up. 1 month later, Squale and Petra's engagement is announced. Pastry talks to Lord Cadlesec privately, saying it's strange that mercenaries could kidnap Licorice so easily unless someone helped them secretly. Cadlec, who was that someone, is surprised Pastry figured it out but admits it was wrong and promises to help Casserole's farms if Pastry stays quiet. Lord Huberek tricks Pastry into agreeing to marry Licorice, which shocks Casserole. Cadlesec, finding it funny, gets back at Pastry by announcing the engagement to everyone. Licorice is happy and Pastry decides to make her happy too. Since Pastry likes sweets, Licorice gives him cookies she made. Pastry eats them even though she accidentally used salt instead of sugar, so he doesn't hurt her feelings. Casserole risks his life to tell Agnes that Pastry is suddenly engaged. Brioche gets mad at Lord Huberek because by marrying one daughter to Squale and another to Pastry, he's trying to get more political power than her. Pastry gets saplings from Lord Cadlesec that can grow in bad soil and make nectar, a replacement for honey. Pastry plans to build reservoirs to store rainwater. Casserole is happy because, thanks to Pastry, his farms are making money for the first time. But his happiness doesn't last long when he finds out Pastry is doing something big again. Using a spell he copied from the chief of the mercenaries, Pastry digs 3 huge reservoirs. Casserole is mad because Pastry flattened one of his mountains to do it, and he punishes Pastry, Mark, and Lumi. Brioche can't marry Pastry herself, so she comes up with another plan. Pastry's reservoirs collect so much rain that the village builds permanent canals to water their farms and Pastry's trees. Brioche invites Pastry to a tea party with some hidden motives. Casserole says Licorice is moving in so she can get to know Pastry and her future family. Lord Huberek, thinking that Brioche has secret plans for Pastry, hopes Licorice being with Pastry at the tea party will stop those plans. Pastry shows Licorice that he's making honey-flavored sweets for the party, and she loves him even more because he's so excited. Agnes and Josephine spy on them and get frustrated that Pastry is focused on sweets instead of Licorice. At the party, mostly attended by young nobles looking for spouses, Pastry's sweets are a hit. This success makes Pastry suggest regular trading between Casserole and other nobles, but only if they don't have to pay a high sugar tax. Brioche takes Pastry aside for a private talk about these trade talks, leaving Licorice with Cara and guard Nico. Pastry plans to make sugar from Casserole's farms in 3 years, a big and profitable goal. Brioche lets him use her coastal ports for shipping his sweets, but she still can't figure out his true goal. While Pastry is away, Licorice hears nobles gossiping and worries that Pastry might leave her for someone more noble. She tries to leave the party upset. Brioche asks Pastry if he loves Licorice, making him flustered enough for her to trap him in a hug just as Licorice walks in and sees them. Licorice runs away and Brioche finds it amusing. Licorice sadly wishes she could be more like Petra, who can stand up to bullies. Pastry tells her it's okay to be herself and not like Petra. After giving her a toffee apple, they almost kiss but get interrupted by a disapproving Cara. They go back home, and as a petty revenge for upsetting Licorice, Pastry uses pictures of Brioche hugging him as wrappers for his sweets, which he sends to all his customers. This leads to rumors that Brioche likes younger men, and she starts getting marriage proposals from nobles as young as 8 to 10 years old. Huberek's enemy, Margrave Luderout, gets mad about Petra's engagement to Squale. He decides to invade Huberek's land with 30,000 men to settle their rivalry before Petra marries into the Cadlesec family. Pastry plans to buy goats and chickens for milk and eggs. He also plans to make sugar from sweet grass. His first attempt to build a sugar machine fails, so Licorice suggests using a grape press used in winemaking to get the result he wants. Pastry hurries to ask Casserole to buy a grape press, but he finds out that the rivalry between Huberek, Luderout, and their allies has caused a civil war throughout the kingdom. Luderout thinks the war has made Huberek and Cadlesec not get along, so he decides to make it worse by going after Squale. Squale is Petra's fiancé and Cadlesec's heir, so if something happens to him, it will hurt both families a lot. Pastry can't do much about it, so he focuses on the farms. He finds out that the mean Baron Lunsvage bought his goats before they could be delivered. Lunsvage is known for bullying less noble families, but because of the war needing food supplies, it's not practical to complain about the goats. Pastry and Casserole figure out a way to get the goats back and help in the war. They volunteer to join Huberek's side and get priority access to war supplies. They go to the front lines. Squale, being a noble, does the right thing and goes to the front lines too, but Kubrick sends him to a safer area to make sure he doesn't get hurt. Luderout, expecting this, sends a big group to wait for Squall. Casserole and Pastry figure it out and show up just in time to save Squill from the surprise attack. Luderout finds out Squall is okay and worries that Kablasek might join in even though Petra and Squill aren't married yet, so he has to retreat. Squill feels really sad and isolates himself because it's his first time dealing with death. Casserole remembers how Pastry helped Mark with his sadness, so he asks Pastry to help Squall. Squall feels guilty about his men who died. At the victory party, Pastry makes tart tatin, a dessert with baked bonkas. Pastry says he made it by mistake, but it turned out great. Squall realizes that making mistakes doesn't mean he failed. It won the battle, and he came back safely to Petra. Kumarek wants to reward Pastry, so Pastry gets his goats back, along with horses and supplies meant for Lunsvig. He even gets the wine press he wanted. Licorice and Petra are invited to the royal capital, so Pastry goes to the city to order a dress for Licorice. With goat milk and sugar, Pastry makes Licorice a cheesecake. With the extra supplies from Huberek, he starts trying out different types of fruit.